I am so excited this morning. I have not been this excited since ESPN announced that they were expanding their coverage of the dump, giving us unprecedented access to even more exciting events in the WNBA. Just when I thought CNN had finally sunk to the bottom of the woke sea. Just when I thought CNN was properly buried in the woke cemetery. Just when I thought they were throwing in the towel. They were giving up their fight for relevance. Executives at CNN who have been lying peacefully in the grave, they come together forcing their hand upwards, finding through the primary ingredient in the pound my brown cake. Dirt. They force their hands through the dirt, pulling themselves up out of the grave. They make an exciting announcement this morning that he is risen, and he lives to fight another day. It is no secret at this point, CNN is one of the leading nominees for the upcoming Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards. Some odds makers are even claiming that CNN is the odds-on favorite to take the crown from the undisputed, undefeated, reigning champion of Huge Embarrassing Failures, Bomani Jones. Over the last couple of years, ratings at CNN have been in the pooper. Their entire primetime lineup is routinely beaten by some talking sponge on Nickelodeon. Executives at CNN, they have been fighting the good fight. They have been trying to rescue the Titanic. Last year, they hired Chris Licht, better known here on the channel as Chris the Bongo Licker, someone who had as much experience running a cable news network that I do. Now, obviously, that little experiment ended in failure. For some reason, executives thought that people were not watching CNN because it was on cable TV, linear television. They launched a streaming service thinking that people who were unwilling to watch them on cable would be willing to pay monthly to watch highly produced turds. They brought in the real heavy hitters for this streaming service, failures like Jamel Hill, Rex Chapman. How did it end? Failure. They blamed Donnie Lemon for their failure in prime time. Now, instead of firing him for low ratings, CNN squeezed the lemon between two insufferable women on CNN this morning. Now, from the beginning, this did not make any sense. Donnie Lemon has a reputation for not getting along with women. They're not exactly his type. Now, if there's one thing that divas have in common, they don't tend to get along well with each other. Chris Licker thought it would be compelling television to put three divas beside each other in the mornings. Now, the catfights were compelling, but the problem was no one was watching. Failure. After a string of embarrassing failures, now that I think about it, the only good decision Chris Licht made in the 12 months that he was running CNN was shutting down the streaming service. That was it, because every other decision that he made ended in embarrassing failure. After 12 months of no success and a blistering article in The Atlantic, CNN made the decision to fire Chris Licht. Ratings problem solved, right? They moved Kaitlan Collins into prime time. Katie Roo! Katie Roo! Now, everything is cucumbers and rainbows at CNN, right? Who wouldn't want to watch an insufferable robotic Katie Roo in prime time? As it turns out, everyone. But that's okay. That's okay. Because executives at CNN, they have identified the problem. They have finally figured out why no one is watching their network. They have stumbled upon the formula of success. Now, if you and me, if we were responsible for rescuing this sinking Titanic, if we were responsible for improving ratings at CNN, what would we do? I would find someone with star power, someone normal people respect, and have them anchor the primetime lineup. Now, it would have to be someone from the outside. The vast majority of people working at CNN, they have already been infected with the woke fungus. Prognosis is not good. Most have been diagnosed with stage 4 shit fuckery. And once you reach stage 4 status, there is no cure. Now, I do realize it would be difficult to convince someone that normal people respect to come to work at CNN. Hell, they couldn't even convince Bill Maher to take their money. But if you want to save this network, you have got to bring in star power from the outside, because there is absolutely no star power at CNN. But what does CNN do? Earlier this morning, they announced that they were revamping their entire lineup. How did they go about making these changes? Were they looking for people who were qualified to host a show in cable news? Were they looking for people with charisma, people who had the ability to be relatable and draw an audience? Were they looking for hosts that could change the perception of the network, people who could restore credibility at CNN? No, 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 and no. According to the New York Times, CNN had one standard in mind as they were making all these changes: diversity. Diversity? Diversity? Isn't that the ingredient in the woke smoothie that sunk this ship to begin with? Hiring people based on diversity, that is not the solution at CNN. Hiring people based on diversity and diversity alone, that is the fucking problem. One of the reasons they put Kaitlan Collins in prime time was because they felt their primetime lineup needed a female's touch. They saw a beautiful young woman, someone they thought men would watch. CNN described Katie Rue as a rising star. So, rising star. How high has this star managed to fly? We're going on 2, maybe 3 months now that the Rue's been in prime time. Now, to be completely fair, that is not a lot of time to build an audience, but it's more than enough time to increase the ratings of your predecessor. Ratings in prime time at CNN, they had nowhere to go but up. Well, Casey, who was Katie's predecessor? I have no idea. The time slot's been vacant since they fired Chris Cuomo. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C. And they moved the sour lemon from primetime to morning television. CNN's been using a rotating panel of failures to fill this slot in prime time. If I remember correctly, this rotating panel, they were averaging between 6, maybe 700,000 viewers. Now, last month, CNN averaged 710,000 in prime time. What did Katie Rue average? 558,000, with an abysmal, embarrassing, humiliating 109,000 in the key 25 to 54 demo. Now, that is the demo that Katie Rue was supposed to appeal to. You mean to tell me a young, beautiful woman can't convince lonely men to watch her on TV? Kaitlan Collins does not rank in the top 10 on a network that can't attract a puppy to a freshly baked doodle. Fun fact, over the last 3 months, guess what was the most watched programs at CNN? Just take a wild guess. There's 2 of them. A special they did on the arrest and arraignment of Donald Trump, and another special that they aired on the January 6th indictment of Donald Trump. Orange Man bad. I think I know how to fix the ratings problem at CNN. You put Donald Trump on in prime time. He's the only person who can draw ratings at this dump. But maybe a little bit of diversity, maybe some diversity is exactly what CNN needs. They are solving this diversity problem by having Abby Phillips and Laura Coates following the embarrassing failure of Katie Rue. KC, who and who? I've never heard of these people. Neither has anyone else. If I remember correctly, CNN's already tried Laura Coates in prime time. Matter of fact, the network was accused of mythical racism after they passed over Laura Coates to promote Kaitlan Collins to prime time. And now they're setting themselves up for claims of mythical racism again, because when they had to remove Laura Coates for low ratings, the deacons at Woke United Methodist, they are going to claim this decision is racist. CNN, they are also adding some diversity to their morning lineup by adding Phil Mattingly to CNN this morning, where he's going to co-host alongside Poppy the Harlow. How does that represent diversity? Now, I had never heard of Phil Mattingly. I had to look him up. Just like his namesake Don, Phil Mattingly identifies as the white man. Maybe he shares the same proclivities as the other Don, not Don Mattingly. I'm talking about Don Lemon. That's got to be it, right? Philly represents diversity because he's one of the G's in LGBT. But as it turns out, that is not true either. But KC, there were rumors at one point that Phil was a G, so it's the same thing. Oh, rumors. Now it makes sense. The mainstream media, they are describing this as sweeping changes at CNN. They have revamped their entire lineup. I'm looking at this lineup. I don't see sweeping changes. I see the same huge embarrassing failures. Jake the Bongo Tapper still hosting a mid-afternoon show that no one watches. Interns, they are still pushing Wolf Blitzer around in the wheelchair to make sure he's on time for the Situation Room of Failure. Andy Cooper still representing diversity, I guess, with his librarian style and soothing voice at 8 o'clock. Someone named Aaron Burnett is still hosting something called Out Front. The only thing this network is out front of is a fucking bus. I do not see sweeping changes here. I see a mild infusion of diversity and time slots that don't matter. And I see the same huge embarrassing failures that were responsible for tanking ratings to begin with. So someone please explain to me how this is going to change CNN. How is this going to save the network? Well, KC, you've forgotten the best part. They made big changes to their weekend lineup. They damn sure did. Does anyone remember Wallace Chrissy? He hosts a show on CNN called Who's Talking to Chris Wallace? Now, obviously, that is a rhetorical question since no one is talking to Chris Wallace. A better title for the show would be Who Gives a Shit About Chris Wallace? Again, a rhetorical question with the same answer, no one. But now that Chris Wallace has successfully failed on Sundays, CNN is parlaying that failure by giving him another hour on Saturday mornings. Now you get a double dose of someone who should have retired 10 years ago. This is the network that Charles Barkley is joining. Starting this fall, Charles Barkley, he's going to be hosting a weekly show with Gayle King called King Barkley. Show is going to air once a week on Wednesday nights. Now let me go ahead and give you the end result. Failure. Gayle King can't draw ratings on CBS. And I don't know what the hell Charles Barkley's thinking here. This dude is setting himself up for failure, which is something that he's not familiar with throughout his career in the mainstream media. This new lineup at CNN, this is nothing but a virtue signal to their colleagues in the mainstream media. They are claiming that they have made their network more diverse, and for some reason, the media is biting into that shit sandwich. Listen to this primetime lineup. You tell me how diverse this sounds. Wolf Blitzer, Aaron Burnett, Andy Cooper, Kaitlan Collins. Sounds like a vanilla milkshake to me with antiquated dried cucumbers and fresh peaches. I'll tell you what else it sounds like. Huge embarrassing failure. This is the same lineup that has already proven they can't draw ratings. So someone please explain to me, make this make sense. How is this supposedly revamped lineup? How is this going to save CNN? I don't see one program in this weekly lineup that's got the potential to draw ratings. At this point, CNN would be better off airing archived footage of Donald Trump 24 hours a day. Be a hell of a lot cheaper and it would outperform every other show they currently have. But you give me your thoughts. CNN combats their ratings problem by adding more shows that are destined for failure. They claim to have diversified their network by changing nothing in the primetime lineup. Poor Laura Coates. Poor Laura Coates. They put her on at 11 o'clock at night and claim it's a victory for diversity. This poor woman couldn't draw ratings in prime time. No one's watching CNN at 8, much less 11. They are setting Laura Coates up for failure, but hey, it's a win for diversity. Let me know what you think of this stupidity. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.